Welcome into another edition of the FutureSox RoundUp. My name is Elijah Evans. I am joined, as always, as sometimes, by my co-host Dylan Barnas. Dylan and Jeff switching off co-hosting these days. We're excited. This is our first live together, Dylan and myself. Excited to be here, talk with everyone. We've already got one of our regulars asking a few questions. We'll get to some questions for sure. Super excited to really just get after things today. We're fully into the minor league season now. Things are rolling. Every team has had a full week of games. I think every team got either nine plus games under their belt at this point. So we're going to go through some of the key things throughout throughout the pod today. We're going to go through each level. We'll start in the big leagues, talk about Mr. Chase Meidroth, his debut this weekend, which was really fun. It was a really fun weekend, all things considered, for the White Sox organization. Major League down, honestly. There was fun performances at every level. So we're going to start at the big leagues with Meidroth and a couple other things to mention there, and then we're going to work our way down the levels. Dylan, how you doing? Welcome to your first live Future Sox pod.
Yeah, I saw you and Jeff do it last week, and it went pretty smoothly. I enjoyed it. I like interacting with chat a lot more. That because you're not just talking into a void. It's not just me and the camera screen. I'm actually getting feedback from the chat, and answering your guys' questions is always a plus. Getting live feedback. But yeah, minor league season is fully underway. There's been some pretty exciting players that we got to talk about, but we got to start at the top. Obviously, Chase Meidroth, big league debut. I think it was six straight on base to start his MLB career.
Yeah, man, it was. It's been fun, right? 3 hits, 3 walks, gets on base 6 times. I think it was five straight, and then he got the one in the Crochet's game.
Yeah.
But it's just good at bats, man. This is the thing we talked about in this all off season when the White Sox acquired Chase Meidroth, when he was in spring training, even with his, shaky spring, right? Like, I think the people were wanting him to make the roster. I would have been fine with him making the roster, but I think the idea was, the spring was a little bit rough. Let's give him, get him back in Charlotte just in AAA for a little bit. If he succeeds, he's going to be in Chicago soon. That happens very quickly, obviously. Gets called up, gets to face his old team that traded him a few months ago in his MLB debut this weekend. Just a great first 3 games for Meidroth. Breaks up Garrett Crochet's no-hitter yesterday, which a slight part of me wanted Crochet to get that no-hitter. I'm not going to lie. Even as a White Sox fan, I do love Crochet and always will. I think there was a little part of me that was like, it'd be pretty cool if Crochet threw a no-hitter at in Chicago. But at the same time, glad Meidroth broke it up. And it really just, he did what he does best, man. And that's something that this team and this lineup needed, a presence like Chase Meidroth, and he's going to be that guy. And I'm hoping honestly that he's hitting at the top of the order for the next few months at the very least. Honestly,
yeah, I think that he should probably be hitting 2 for the very foreseeable future, just because he gets on base ahead of Luis Robert. You're forced to throw Luis Robert strikes because you can't walk him and put 2 guys on with hopefully less than 2 outs. So I just think that he would be a perfect table setter for Robert. And then, hopefully the bottom of the lineup can hit him in. Benintendi, when he comes back, can hopefully bat 4, depending on his health. I don't know. And then
no Andrew Vaughn in the 4-hole?
No, really. I'm really I don't know what else he can do to just move himself out of the 4-hole. I mean, he was 0 for 25. He was 0 for his last 25 going into that Boston game, and that hit in the 9th inning was his first hit in a week. So I don't know. The experiment needs to end. I think that Tim Elko can't possibly be worse, right? I get that he's unlucky. His xwOBA is 200 points higher, but come on, man, you can't be a first baseman where you're supposed to be the big bat in the lineup, and then you roll over every single pitch.
It is a lot of rollovers, that's for sure. That's why, a guy like Meidroth, right? It's not flashy. You're not going to get even, he flashed 3 homers in Charlotte his first week in AAA. I don't expect a bunch of homers from Meidroth. I think it's probably 5 max on the season. Maybe
I'd be happy with
towards
3,
8.
to be honest.
Awesome. Cool. I don't care, man. Give me these walks and give me these singles and give me these long bats, man, where he works the count. He takes his pitches. He knows the zone well, and he's going to give you a quality at bat almost every time he comes up to the plate. And that's something that the White Sox don't have a lot of. They don't have enough of. Another guy giving some pretty quality at bats, I think, Brooks Baldwin with the walk-off this weekend. Yep. Obviously the hero of the game on Saturday with that walk-off double down the line. Just in general, though, Baldwin looks a little more comfortable the way in these early games than he did in his brief stint in the MLB last year. We saw him have this meteoric rise through the minors last year, and like that put a lot of expectation on his were last year. And I know both of us we're big fans of him and excited to see him. There's going to be some ups and downs. This still is probably not, Baldwin's not a guy who you're going to see a 900 OPS from in his career ever. Like he's not a player. But what Baldwin provides is a ton of versatility and good contact skills. And that's another thing that I want to see that every day. I don't need to see a lot of these guys that we've seen on this roster so far, and a lot of these guys that we're going to see further into the season. I want Brooks Baldwin and Chase Meidroth playing at least 6 days a week, and I really don't see any reason why they shouldn't be. And they've honestly been the two of the bright spots in an otherwise, still pretty struggling lineup for the most part.
Yeah, I think that those two should probably be the middle infield going forward until Colson figures it out or something else happens.
Rojas will be back at some point.
Rojas, he's going to be back soon. But Colson, maybe he figured it out. I don't know. Ryan Fuller went to Florida to work on things with Colson. His first game back in the lineup, had a multi-hit game, including a homer, but he did strike out twice. And as we all know, the strikeouts have been a killer for him this year. But Baldwin and Meidroth, middle infield, sign me up for that. Those two are probably the two most fun players on the team right now, not named Luis Robert, but just give me more of those guys.
Yeah, I'm here for it, man. Well, that's all we really need to discuss on the big league level. Some good performances all around, right, from some of the young starters. Davis Martin had a gem this week. Shane Smith continues to shove. I guess we should talk Shane Smith for a second.
Yeah,
Shane Smith is Arnold. Good pitcher. He's just very, very good. It's not like this is this guy could be okay. And, and honestly, both of us were kind of wrong when this first happened in the World 5. I viewed him as more of a reliever based on his stuff last year. I thought it was more of a long relief profile, which is not a bad thing, but I didn't see him making this leap to being a starter and seeing his stuff tick up the way it's ticked up, right? The changeup has been game changing for him. He said that in spring training that development of the change was going to be a key for him. And has it been a key? Wow, that changeup is disgusting. He threw one at 94 yesterday. I don't know if you saw that one, or was it 2 days ago? Yeah, he flashed a 94-mile-an-hour changeup yesterday, which you're not going to see anywhere, really. I mean, that's a Paul Skeens type of velo on a changeup, right? That's ridiculous. Most of them are still, 90, 91, but great movement overall. The fastball is still, is at a better place than it was at all last year. He's just a good pitcher. I think the breaking ball still have some room to develop there, but this is a guy who's right now is already showing early in the season that he belongs in this rotation, and that, obviously a lot of the depth rotation wise has been wiped away from injury. So he doesn't have anybody knocking on the door to take his spot. And even if he did, I don't think you could take this guy out of the rotation. Even if Drew Thorpe was healthy, I don't know if it would be Shane Smith coming out of the rotation the way he's been pitching so far.
Yeah, I think that he's probably he's been the best pitcher in this overall, White Sox rotation. Easily.
Yeah, you can make a case for Martin Perez maybe, but I think Smith's stuff has been better. Yeah, I think Smith's stuff has been better for sure. And Perez has been good too. That's another guy who, keep going, Martin Perez. The better he pitches, the better prospect he gets at the deadline, and I'm here for it. That makes all the sense in the world. And, he continues to be a veteran leader on this team as well, which can only help the rest of the pitching staff. As a whole, take a guess, Dylan. What do you think the White Sox rank prior to today's games that just started recently? But heading into today, where do you think the White Sox rank as a team in ERA?
Ooh, that's a good question because there's been, I don't want to say blow up games, but there's been games. There's been games where they allowed 7, 8, 9. We haven't allowed 10 yet, which is a good sign. So I'm gonna say 12th is my guess.
10th? You're close. 10th? You're real close.
Wow. Okay.
10th in team ERA heading into today, the Chicago White Sox. So even with the bullpen that's been shaky, even with a few really rough starts, Davis had a blow up, Sean had a blow up, right? Even with that, this pitching staff has been good. We talked about this throughout the winter. This pitching staff has been competitive all season, and there is this is yikes, man. I did not see that. That's brutal. Red Sox losing 14-1. That's crazy. All right, Red Sox. The White Sox broke Boston? ?
Yeah,
maybe that happened this weekend.
They're in Tampa Bay. They're in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that stadium is a joke. It's true. But yes. The pitching's been good coming back on that. It's been a fun pitching staff to watch, and I only think it's going to get better. We're going to keep seeing improvements from a lot of these guys. I think Sean Burke's got a lot of adjustments he's been making that are going to start to show more. I think Davis Martin just put together his a real gem this past weekend, and I think we're going to see more of that from him. Cannon's last start was definitely a little bit of an improvement from his prior one. There's adjustments being made. I think there's stuff coming. I'm waiting for the Shane Smith 10K shutty game. He's had this little, he's had these bumps in the sixth inning almost every start he's made so far. It's just a third time going through a lineup for a guy that hasn't been, his first big league. Like, that's just a natural challenge. Very few rookies are going to thrive in their third time going through a lineup when it comes to that sixth inning, right? I think you're either going to see Smith start to get pulled a little bit earlier, or just keep giving him a leash and just see that step. Like, when he has a dominant sixth inning, that's when it's going to be like, oh man, like, I think that's going to be the next step in his progression from what's already been a very impressive start to his career.
Yeah, and the one thing I will note with Smith is that the fastball velo does tick down as the game goes on, which
yes, it does.
It makes sense because this is his first time starting I think he only made like 14 or something minor league starts, and he was bouncing in between like a long relief role starting. So for him to be even pitching six innings consistently, that's perfect. But just needs to find a little bit more consistency with the fastball later on in games because loses control of it. We saw it in Cleveland. He walked the first two guys. I think three of the four pitches to both guys were fastballs just because he couldn't locate anything else. But yeah, if he can just find the zone with the fastball late in games and just keep the velocity above like 94, that's fine. But yeah, I'm really impressed with what I've seen from Shane Smith so far.
Yeah. 100%. It's been great to watch. Let's get down to Charlotte. We'll make our way. This past week, the Knights went 0-6. I did not realize that until I checked today. I knew they had some rough games, but I did not realize they got 6 games swept by the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. So they head into this week at 6-9 overall after a pretty good first week to their season. They're hosting Nashville this week. Who are some of the players in Charlotte that you want to dive into today? The ones that have been thriving recently, and other guys that we should kind of get into otherwise.
It wouldn't be a Charlotte Knights talking point without Tim Elko. Tim Elko went 7 for 17 last week. That's a .412 batting average. He didn't homer, surprisingly, but he did have 2 extra base hits, 2 doubles. Only struck out 5 times, which it's under 30%. So I don't know. He did have an off day on Sunday, so we didn't get to see the full 6 games from Elko. So that's only a 5-game sample. But I mean, what more do we need to see from Tim Elko in order for a call-up?
Yeah, it's just I don't see the team cutting ties with Vaughn at this point. It's unfortunate. I think that there's plenty of reasons to, but how do you get Elko? I mean, is it a DH at bats? Like, is that what you want to think? I just think if you're going to call someone, I get what you're saying. It's just if you're going to call someone up, I feel like you'd rather give those extra at bats to a Caro or a Teal than Elko. Yeah. But maybe it's ahead of Teal, honestly. I mean, Teal struggled a bit the past week or two. I think he had a really hot start and has been, ups and downs since. But Teal has had his fair share of struggles in the past week versus Elko, who just continues to produce consistently. What do you like? Is it just simple as DFAing Vaughn and bringing up Tim Elko if you were kind of in that, if that was your mindset right there?
Yeah, I think that Andrew Vaughn is not going to get any better. He's just simply not. I think he's probably gotten worse since the White Sox drafted him. So I just don't think that he's worthy of a spot. Like, I know that he was a high draft pick, and cutting a loss like that is not fun, especially he was touted to be the heir to the first base throne in Chicago, and he has just flopped. So I don't know.
I think it's tough. And then the hard thing is, like, Andrew Vaughn is less than a year older than Tim Elko, and he has 4.5 years of big league experience. So yes, I don't disagree with you. It's hard to envision a scenario where a guy that's that much older when he's debuting is a priority for the White Sox to get playing time. Yeah, it's part of it's got to be the draft stock. I mean, of course, I think part of it is the draft stock, but I do think that at least the White Sox can look and say, oh, we've gotten 20 homers from Andrew Vaughn for 4 years, and he's still only 27 years old. Yeah, but it's stagnant. It's not, the issue is it's not, there's no growth. There's no signs of growth. There hasn't been any continual growth from Vaughn the past few seasons.
Yeah, and sure, he plays every single game and is going to accumulate those counting stats. But when you look at some of the underlying stats and you take out his yearly hot month that he has, he's the worst first baseman in baseball. Like, that's not even me being biased or whatever. In terms of FWAR, he is the worst first baseman with as many plate appearances as he has since he moved over to first base. Yeah. So I don't know. Tim Elko can't possibly be worse, right? Like, that's sort of my rationale.
Could be, but yeah, I get it.
We won't know.
I hear you. I hear you. Who else in Charlotte is kind of sticking out this past week?
Owen White, waiver claim from I believe the Rangers.
Yeah.
I forget which organization he came from, but
Rangers, yeah. No, you got it.
yeah, 10 and 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 9 Ks. Not bad. 1.69 ERA, and he has struggled with walks, but 7 walks last week. But he's kind of showing something in that Charlotte rotation, because if one of those starters in the big leagues goes down with an injury, or later on in the year a trade happens, he could be one of the guys that we see later on in the year, because he's already on the 40. So it's not like we would have to clear a spot. It would just be swapping him for somebody else on the 26 man. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I think that he was kind of a surprise waiver claim when it happened, but he looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a former second rounder out of high school, right? Who had a pretty fair amount of prospect pedigree for a number of years. Actually, it was really just the past year or two when he's kind of tailed off the radar, just because he got a big league stint in both 23 and 24, struggled both times, continued to go back to AAA, struggled a little bit more there. I mean, had a really rough season last year in the PCL, which take it with a grain of salt, right? But
Yeah.
it was not a great season from White. It's been 2 kind of rough seasons in a row from White now, and having been a former high end prospect. So, what does that look like? Who knows? But at the same time, the White Sox have had success adjusting pitching and having guys, change some things, mess around, find some success. And I think White could be one of those guys, whether it's, a long relief role out of the pen, potentially I could see for him later in the season, or if he needs to replace a starter in this rotation later in the year for injury reasons or anything like that. I think he probably is the next man up, as funny as it sounds. It's I think right now, the way that Iriarte and Mastrini have been pitching, it probably is Owen White if a pitcher were to go down in the rotation. Or maybe it's Bryce Wilson sliding into the rotation. But Owen White's only 25 years old. He's just a high school guy who was a one of the better prospects in the Rangers system as recently as 2023. So I think there's some intrigue there, and I think the organization has found tweaked some things, played around with things a little, and I think he's been one of the better arms to watch in Charlotte so far.
100%. You mentioned Iriarte. We should probably touch on his outing. Only went 1 inning. Walks were a killer for him. 4 walks in that 1 inning. Only allowed 1 hit, but 2 earned runs, 1 punch out. He hit his pitch limit in an inning, so he got hooked. It really just hasn't been the best from Iriarte since he's come over. I know that we were pretty high on him last year after the Dylan Cease trade, and he just hasn't taken that next step. I don't know if that means he's destined for the bullpen now, which he could be a very good reliever. I know that Chris Getz thought of him as Edwin Diaz in a starter's frame, but he might end up just being a long relief, middle relief guy.
Yeah, I'm holding out hope. I think that there's still a lot to like with Iriarte. I think he still has the makings, the build, and the ability to be a starting pitcher.
100%.
The command just isn't there, and the fastball is backed up, honestly. The fastball is not where it was 2 years ago when he was really breaking out in the Padres system. I think it's been generally a mediocre fastball compared to when he was coming up through the lower levels of the minor leagues a few years ago, when it was a plus fastball and borderline plus at times, right? Like, it flashed the upside of a very good fastball, and now I think it's a okay fastball, lower in velo, the movement's down. And like you said, the command is just, you can't, I mean, nine walks and 7 strikeouts in his first 3 starts is just, it's just not going to work, unfortunately. No. So we'll see. He's got time, right? That rotation does not have anybody really knocking on the door at this point, right? Like, you've got a lot of, with all the injuries with Mason Adams and Drew Thorpe and Kai Busch, right? Like, there's innings there, and he's going to keep getting those innings, but we got to see a little bit more from him moving forward for sure.
100%. I think that pretty much wraps up Charlotte. There's not really.
We touched on Colton a little. Yeah. I mean, Edgar Caro. This is a question from earlier in the comments of we need an explanation on why Caro isn't up yet, please. I just think the White Sox are trying to be as patient as possible with the higher end prospects, right? With Meidroth, it's like he's such a big league ready profile. He doesn't have the upside that a Caro or a Teal does. I think the idea there is to just be easygoing, be patient, wait out the situation and allow, just give, I don't know. When Corey Lee got hurt, my instant thought was like, oh man, it'd be nice if we saw Caro, but it's probably Omar Narvaez, and it has been Omar Narvaez, and that's fine. And Narvaez is a good vet. I think that part of it is also just continuing to grow these, young guys in a situation where the pitchers have experienced catching behind them and just helping them develop in that way. I do think that helps. I think Theis and Narvaez and even Corey Lee a little bit are kind of have a little bit more of that experience, a little bit more sound defensively potentially. That's fine. Do I want to see Edgar Caro though? Like, yeah, I would like to see Edgar Caro personally. That would be pretty nice. I would like that.
Yeah.
Another guy quickly to mention before we head down to Birmingham. A question in the comment: did Ramos get cleared to play yet? He is off the IL officially. He got optioned to Charlotte. Was it 2 or 3 days ago at this point?
Yeah.
So I expect Ramos to be playing in Charlotte this week, which will be good to see him get some reps. I don't know where exactly the innings come from, but it'd be nice to see if Ramos gets a good hot few weeks in Charlotte. Like, he's already on the 40. Like, there's no risk there, right? Like, you might as well. I would like to see it in Chicago. I'd rather see it in Chicago than some at bats we've seen so far. I mean, I'd be perfectly okay with Lenyn Sosa at bats going to Brian Ramos. I don't know about you, but I'd be cool with that. That works for me. If it's a couple games, a game or two at third, a game or two at second, a handful of DH games. Ramos has played a couple games at first before. If you want to give Vaughn a day off and let him play there, fine by me. Like, I think you can find a way to get his bat in the lineup at some point. Obviously, you got to get him to Charlotte. He's been kind of dinged up a little. His arm was the issue, so he was hitting in the spring. He just wasn't fielding right. So now that his arm's healthy, I think if he gets back into game reps for a couple weeks and his arm looks good to play the field and he's hitting well, let's see it. By May, I'd like to see him in Chicago if things go well in Charlotte.
Yeah, I think that if he tears it up for the first couple weeks, and we know Brian Ramos, he's a very streaky hitter, so there's a chance that he performs well over these next couple weeks and earns a promotion. Maybe when Josh Rojas comes back, Nick Maton probably gets DFA'd, and I would be, like you said,
I don't know about Maton. Maton might stick around. We'll see. Maybe he gets
DFA'd. Maybe. But I think that if Ramos and Sosa just swap places, I think that I would be fine with that, just because we've seen enough Lenyn Sosa and we haven't seen enough Brian Ramos. So I just like to see more of him.
Yeah, I'm down for it. Yeah, I'm down for it. Let's go to Birmingham. Yeah, Birmingham went 4-2 this week. Pretty solid week all around, obviously. One or two rough games there, one particularly rough game mixed in, but a really solid week generally from Birmingham. Going 4-2, they are at home this week. They're at 5-3 now on the season. At home against Biloxi, who is normally very good, but Biloxi 2-7 to start the year. I don't know exactly I haven't looked into Biloxi, but they're usually one of the better teams in the Southern League, and they're 2-7 off the bat. But Birmingham 5-3 at home this week. Isn't Sosa? This is an interesting question. I want to answer this one in the comment real quick before we move on to that. The question is, isn't Sosa better than Vargas? I don't think so. I lean no. I think Vargas has been rough so far for sure. They both have, honestly. I think there's a little more that the White Sox want to see with Vargas. I think there's a little more to tap into, right? A little bit better success in terms of his pedigree, his previous years. I don't know. I don't love either these days, but I think that there's, Vargas is going to keep getting at bats. He's no matter what, he's going to get this whole season to show that he can be a big leaguer. So I don't think that changes. I do think there's a chance that the Sosa innings go somewhere else in the near future.
Yeah, I just think that Vargas has been putting together better at bats than what we saw last year.
Yeah.
And I think that if he can work on his launch angle distribution, I think that he's hitting way too many ground balls right now. I know that he doesn't have he has the highest exit velocity of any average exit velocity of any player without a barrel in the MLB right now. And that's solely because he's just hitting the ball straight into the ground. So I don't know if he can just hit the ball in the air more, I think he'll be fine. But I would just like to see what Vargas has for more than, I think we're on game 40 something of Vargas, so I'm not ready to write him off completely yet.
Yeah, I'm ready to see more from him. Birmingham, Dylan, let's shoot. Yeah. What you got down in good old Birmingham, Alabama?
William Bergolla, he had himself a week. He went 7 for 19 with a 1.004 OPS, 2 doubles, 4 walks, 1 strikeout. The kid just doesn't strike out. I think that if he is like sort of a Chase Meidroth, Brooks Baldwin type of player, that could be really fun because he's super fast, four stolen bases in last week. If he can be a guy, that Tanner Banks trade is looking real, real good for the White Sox.
Yeah, I mean, you turned a veteran lefty reliever that was going to do nothing for this team into a guy that, he not only, first of all, he very much impressed in camp this year. Like he came into spring training and was clearly one of the younger guys continually getting innings in big league spring training games. And that stands out off the bat, right? Like if you're getting those innings and he was in all the primary B games along with the top prospects in the organization, spent the entire year last year in high A, announced in April by Paul Yanish that he was going to start in double A. Bergolla is 20 years old and will be 20 this entire season. An entire season of a 20-year-old middle infielder in Birmingham, that jump is a huge jump at his age, and generally the high A to double A jump for hitters is already the biggest jump in the minor leagues. It's notorious for being that, right? It's going to be fun to watch what he can do because he is that mold of just gets on base, doesn't strike out. Like last year, he had 38 strikeouts, man, the entire season. That's in 89 games, 38 strikeouts, 29 walks, 27 stolen bases last year. This year so far, 5 walks, 4 strikeouts, 4 stolen bases. Get on base, steal bases when you're on base, don't strike out much. Pretty good combination to at least be a big league bench guy, right?
Exactly. And if that's all he is, fine. Because at the end of the day, you got him for a lefty reliever who was like 32, and
wasn't going to be part of the future at all. Yeah,
you're playing with house money. So if he develops into anything, I think that's a win.
Yeah, and it's fun to see. He's still getting some games at short. He is playing some short. Jacob Gonzalez and Bergolla are kind of doing the flip flop thing at short and second base right now. Probably a second baseman. Bergolla is listed at 5'9". He's probably more like 5'8". He's definitely a small dude, probably a second baseman. But hey, keep that range up, versatility. Actually, I didn't even realize he's been the primary shortstop in Birmingham. He has 6 starts at shortstop compared to Jacob Gonzalez's 3. So, 2. So in 8 games, 6 of the 8 have been Bergolla starting at shortstop. So an interesting note there. I think that I'm fine with it. Even if he plays second long-term, he's only going to keep getting better by playing short in Birmingham for now.
100%. He was the best hitter from that Birmingham lineup this past week, but the pitching was really fun. We know about the big 3 of Schultz, Smith, and Taylor, but the unsung hero from last week, and honestly last year, was Riley Gowans. Gowans this past week, 10 innings, 9 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 13 punchouts. Won both of his games, and Gowans he's just pitching. Like, he was throwing last year, and we got him for Aaron Bummer, and he was sort of like, the throwaway minor leaguer, but he's turned into something. I think that if he continues this over a full season, he might be pushing his luck for a rotation spot. I don't want to say early on in 2026, but he could be a depth guy that comes up pretty soon.
Gowans just gets outs, man. I mean, he just has continued to get outs and get strikeouts too. It's not like he's getting outs, 145 strikeouts last season and 122 innings between Winston and then Birmingham. His finish of the season in Birmingham strong is a key part of that playoff run for Birmingham, winning the Southern League last year. And like you said, 13 strikeouts, 2 walks. I think the command for him has been an issue at times. The command was good this week in both of his starts. I think Gowans is, an organizational piece, right? I don't think there's not a ton of projection there, but has generally just been a good quality starter in Birmingham. And I'm glad he's still in that rotation, and he's just going to keep being a consistent guy in the rotation. Probably the first guy up to Charlotte, honestly. When Charlotte needs a starter, if they decide to promote someone from within, I think he's probably the first guy that gets up to Charlotte this season from that group.
I would 100% agree. We saw Grant Taylor. Yeah, we saw Grant Taylor for the first time. I believe it was on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
It was one of those days.
Yeah.
3 innings, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, and 3 innings, 1 hit, 2 walks, 3 Ks. So Grant Taylor continues to do what Grant Taylor does, doesn't allow hits, is going to strike a whole lot of people out, actually.
Yep.
And then he piggybacked with Tyler Schweitzer, and then Schweitzer immediately followed him and went 5 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, it wasn't earned, 1 walk, 8 Ks. So there's your game. That was that was a pitching masterclass, that game.
It's a disgusting piggyback. Like we knew there was going to be someone that got crunched out of the rotation per se in Birmingham. And it's not really even a crunch out because Schweitzer's going to get 5+ innings every time he goes out to the mound following Grant Taylor because Grant Taylor's on this innings restriction. It sounds like Taylor's only going to throw 3 at least for the substantive future, which gives Schweitzer the ability to throw 6 innings given any given start, assuming he's throwing well, right? Like that is such a gross combination to have to face. Grant Taylor coming in, throwing 102 and mixing it in with his breaking stuff. And then you get Schweitzer Schweitzer is nice. And then you get Schweitzer at, you know, a left-handed kind of funky, weird location guy, mixes and matches all over the zone, right? Like that is just a hitter's nightmare in double A, right? To have to go from
Right.
Taylor to Schweitzer because they're so different and they're also both such fun pitchers to watch in their own right. Schweitzer's another guy like Gallants where like it's an organizational guy. You can say it's that, but like at some point, organizational guys who continue to perform become prospects that we're watching, right? Like you might not see either of those names and think prospect pedigree. And yeah, they're not, you know, they're not at the level in terms of their upside as Taylor, Hagen, and Schultz, of course. But those two are both guys that just had good results last year, are starting the season well this year, and are just good pitchers that I think, given their age and their experience, will both get a good amount of innings in Charlotte this season.
100%. And we have to talk about the two lefties in that rotation just to round it out. Noah Schultz, 5 innings, his first time going over, or no, his first start was the first time going 5 innings, but 5 innings.
Oh, he only went for the first start because he had struggled in that game. So this was his first 5 inning start.
First start going 5 innings. Yep. Yeah. 5 innings, 5 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 6 punch outs. It was pretty good for Schultz. He struggled with command a bit early on, but then settled down and ended up going 5 very strong innings.
Yeah, and had a little bit of issue at the very end of his 5th inning and still got out of the inning, which is great to see. So seeing him finish out that 5th inning is big because you need him to be making 5 inning starts this season. That's the next step in his development is going to be that ability to go 5 full innings. We're going to see hopefully 5 full innings from him any given time this season where he's pitching well, assuming his count doesn't get up there too much. 5 innings, 80 pitches seems to be about the range where he's going to be at. So I think that that's a guy who, the more he builds up, I think it's just going to keep getting more fun to watch. There's going to be some ups and downs as he learns to throw longer into games, of course. But at the same time, he's going to be Noah Schultz. Like we're excited. We can't wait to see Noah Schultz and continue to pitch. And he was good this week off the bat. So I think it's good to see. It's good to see that he's just doing what he does. And it was good bouncing back, especially from that first start where he was a little bit, got a little screwed on some dinky hits.
100%. The more Noah Schultz we can see this year, the better, because that means he's being able to throw longer innings. He's going to throw 120, 130 innings this year, if I had to guess. And he's just setting himself up for a rotation spot pretty early on in 2026.
Yeah, definitely.
But on the flip side, Hagen Smith wasn't his best start this past week. Didn't get out of the first, struggled with command pretty badly. 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. So he hit his pitch count in the first inning. He's only allowed to throw, I think it's like 30 something an inning. So once you hit that number, once you hit that number in a single inning, you're done. He's struggled with command, even dating back to spring training. His last couple outings, he was struggling to throw strikes a bit. But I just think Hagen's too good of a pitcher to be struggling with command this much for an extended period of time.
It's uncharacteristic from him, but it also is like, as much as we talk about him as such an advanced pitcher and a guy with so much experience, because he's still in his first stint of real big league ball, and he's jumping in straight into double A. Like, it's not like, you've got guys like in the recent years, some of these top picks like Dollander, now Chase Burns, right, have been in high A and have just dominated, have been in low A or high A and dominated, right? And like, we got a little taste of Hagen there last year, but like, they felt comfortable enough, given his connection to Schultz, given the way they throw together, like to just send him straight to double A. And that is a jump. Like, even coming from the SEC, double A is a jump compared to high A, especially, right? So there's still going to be some ups and downs. I think he's probably trying to figure out, work through the command stuff, but I'm not too worried about Hagen. I think we'll get some really good starts from him in the pretty near future. One more guy, I want to pull this up. Somebody asked in the comment, Wolf asked in the comments about how is Paulette looking. 2 really rough games from Peyton Paulette this week, unfortunately. Command drifted. He gave up 2 runs, I think, earlier in the week, and then this weekend he ended up blowing a game wide open where he gave up 4 runs mainly because of 3 walks. The game following Schultz, that game where Schultz had gone, gave up none, and then Paulette came in to shut it down in the 9th inning, gave up 4 runs. They ended up losing that game. Paulette is someone who, the org values him because he was in big league spring training to start the year. He was getting a lot of innings actually in spring training. And I think coming off of last year, it was like, oh, this is a fast track reliever. Still some things to figure out for Paulette, command wise, I think, particularly. I don't think he's getting hit. I don't think he got hit particularly hard. I know he gave up a couple hits, but I think the command was the stem of that. So not terrible, but not a great start to the season so far for Paulette. Only a few
he Yeah, it's a reliever. He's gonna be up and down all year, and I think that like similar to Hagen Smith, he's too good of a pitcher to be this bad for an extended period
Yeah.
of time. So I'm not worried with Paulette. I think that if this is his first like full year as a reliever. I know
Right.
he was in the rotation last year and then got bumped out and
Yeah, for sure.
thrived in a
Good point.
bullpen role. And now he's there full time, and I think that's where he should be because he's absolutely gross as a reliever. And like you said, a guy that you can see being a fast track guy through the system just because of how highly he was drafted and how good his stuff is.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you there. Anybody else in Birmingham, and then we can make our way down to Winston. We're getting we're taking our time here, making our way down, but we'll get over to
Yeah.
Winston now. Cool. Who's standing on Winston? Winston this week goes 1-5. Rough series against Greensboro from the start. Honestly, a good amount of close games actually, but still a tough series for Winston. They head into this week. They are away in Greenville. They're 3-6 on the season heading into this week. Who's looking at Winston? Obviously it's a little bit of a thinner roster compared to some of the others that we've been talking about. There's a little bit less there in terms of the prospect pedigree. But who in Winston was on your radar this week?
Ryan Galanie, he has had a monster start to the year. He got bumped up to Winston after a good start in Kannapolis last year and came back down to earth. He had a 190 or 190 something WRC plus in Kannapolis. And then when he got bumped up to Winston-Salem, I was like, oh, he's scuffled. And then I looked at his Fangraphs page. He still had a WRC plus of 101. Like he was still a pretty solid hitter last year. But this year he's been great. He's an advanced college hitter. He did nothing but hit at Wofford and has done nothing but hit this year. 333 batting average this past week, 7 for 21, pair of doubles, 4 walks and 5 strikeouts, which is big for him. He's struggled with the strikeout. So if he can cut down some of those strikeout numbers and boost those walk numbers, he could be a guy because his exit velocities are absurd. He hits the ball really, really hard.
Yeah, I think Galanie is, we talked about him last year when he first started really going off at the beginning of the season as like a Tim Elko
Mhm.
light, and he didn't have quite the crazy rise to the minor levels like Tim Elko did, but also a smaller school guy, right? Didn't have the level of college experience that Elko had. Still a little bit younger too. He's an experienced college guy, but I still think there's some intrigue there with Galanie. I think it's a corner bat, right? He's probably a first baseman only at this point going forward, but he gets into the ball sometimes. I mean, he hits the ball hard, and like you said, the approach has been better. This team as a whole in Winston has actually had a pretty sound approach. That's one thing that stood out to me from this team. A lot of walks, right? You got other guys that we're going to mention in a sec that have plenty of walks this season. I mean, you look at through 9 games, you've got a bunch of guys with 6 walks, 7 walks, 8 walks, 6 walks. Like that's really good sign from this team. Yeah, the pitching, being subpar is probably part of that, but some good approaches and just a really, better offensive output than I would have expected, honestly, from this lineup so far.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Sam Antonacci. Only batted 267. Was four for 15, +1 for dodging a punch. Though I don't know how he got suspended for.
If nobody saw that, for those listening, like if you didn't see that, you got to go check out the FutureSox Twitter page for this. Sam Antonacci got a punch thrown at him while he was at first base. Like a couple words exchanged back and forth with the first baseman, who just immediately takes a swing on him, and Antonacci completely gets out of the way and dodges it. Bench is clear. Nothing happened beyond that, but it was just ridiculous. I don't know. It was a silly situation, but Antonacci dodged a punch and also played some great baseball the past week, right?
Yeah, only had 4 hits, but a 500 on base percentage, 5 walks and 3 Ks for Antonacci.
Yeah,
and
make
3
that
Ks
514 on base percentage now for the season, including the first 3 games.
Good Lord, man, 514.
Ridiculous.
That is absurd. And 3 strikeouts in a single week is like a high number for him. Like he's not going to.
That is high. Yeah. And then turns it into runs to stolen bases too, because he moves 4 stolen bases now in his first 9 games this season. You guys, people that listen to us, know how high both of us have been on Antonacci for a little while now, since last year, since the draft. He's just a good baseball player. Like I don't know if the impact will continue to translate. That's going to be the question. But it's funny. But that's
a good one.
It's going to be a guy that we keep watching because he's just a very well-rounded player and because his approach is amazing. And that's guys that we like. And that's clearly a theme that we keep talking about now. The organization is finally putting a little bit more stock in plate approach and discipline at the plate, which is something they have not done previously. And I do think that's a big factor, right? With guys like Bergolla, who we mentioned, and Antonacci, and now you see Meidroth at the big league level. Like, I'm here for that. It's nice. You're going to need some impact guys too. And there is impact guys we're going to talk about. And there's guys in the system that you hope can be impact guys. But you also need these guys that just get on base and work at bats. That's going to help at every facet, not just as they develop, but it's going to help the rest of these minor league rosters develop because you are working counts better, you're forcing pitchers to make better pitches, and you're just taking better at bats. And this is, Wolf just mentioned this here. Wolf asks, is there visible signs of the Ryan Fuller effect? We don't know that yet. Like, I can't say with certainty that this is Ryan Fuller being, the factor here. Is there a more organizational push towards the way they're approaching at bats, though? Yes. And I do think some of that comes from Fuller. And I think we've started to see that prior to Fuller, though. Like, that's something that has already started to happen a little bit. But, it just, let's have these good at bats. Let's take them, as they come. And we'll see from there if it lasts. But guys like Antonacci, guys like Bergolla are a key sign of those types of players that are in the system more than they used to be.
Yeah, these guys, like you said, were not in the system even 4 years ago. 4 years ago, it was a bunch of power guys who had hit tool concerns and then flamed out. But Nick Madrigal, shout out. But yeah, like guys like Wes Kath, for example, like he had a ton of power coming out of high school, and he and Colson Montgomery were supposed to be the left side of the infield in the future, but flamed out, hasn't really taken a step forward. But guys like Antonacci, Bergolla, Meidroth, Baldwin, those guys are things that you need in a system and an organization that thrives, because one of those guys adds like another grade of power, and he's your starting left fielder, second baseman, shortstop, like for a very long time. So Ryan Fuller can do that. He has shown, like, he has had like his fingerprints all over the White Sox lineup this year. He's added like a mile an hour or more to almost the entire lineup's bat speed. Like, that just doesn't happen because of that just doesn't happen overnight in an offseason. And Ryan Fuller was probably the most notable change in that White Sox hitting development sphere. So I think that he was a great hire, and I think that the more time we get, the more time we are removed from his hire, I think that he's going to have
see it over time.
Even more effects.
Yeah, completely. Probably the next guy we would have talked about anyways. In the comments, how has Joel Perez looked? What's Perez been up to so far? Because this is another guy who, at the very least, the approach it's up and down with Perez, which is interesting because he walks a lot, but he definitely strikes out a lot. And that's something we saw last year from him too. Where are you at with Perez of what we've seen so far?
It wasn't a great week from him last week, but it wasn't awful. He was 5 for 20, so a 250 batting average, 5 walks, yay, 6 strikeouts, boo. So I don't know. It's kind of up and down. I would like to see him hit the ball in the air. I mean, not hit the ball in the air. I would like to see him pull the ball more, and like he has shown in the past, because I think it was 3 of his 5 hits were to the opposite field. But when he's on, he's pulling the ball, and it's going a very, very long way for a guy of his stature. He's a tiny, I wouldn't say tiny. He's not like Riku Nishida tiny, but he's an undersized second baseman with a lot of pop for his size.
Yeah.
Didn't hit any, or did he hit a homer this week? No, he did not. He hit
last week,
a double. Yeah. But yeah, I would be pretty fine with Perez getting the majority of the time in. Has he been playing short, or has that been Antonacci?
Seems like he's been playing. They've been switching off. Let's see what Perez's split is. He played a little bit of second, a little bit of short. It seems like Perez has 6 games at second, 2 games at short, so more second than short. And even Antonacci actually has been playing some third too. With then
that makes sense.
With Arxie Hernandez playing some short as well. They've been kind of all moving around. Antonacci's got Antonacci split between second and third. Arxie Hernandez has some games. Neither are probably a shortstop, but I'm fine with either of them for the time being, getting some times here and there.
Yeah, and a guy that we should probably talk about in this Winston lineup is Sammy Zavala. He has not had the greatest of starts to the year. Last week, 2 for 15, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. We just need to see something from him. I think that I was high on him last year when the trade initially happened. He just hasn't shown me anything. Like,
Yeah.
he was great as an 18-year-old in single A ball in 2022 or 2023, sorry. But he just hasn't he's looked overmatched in the time he's spent in high A so far. And it sucks because he was young with a whole lot of potential, and he still is. He's still only 20 years old, so there's time for him to turn it around, and I hope he does, because he could be really fun if he does start to turn it around. But you got to cut down the strikeouts, and you got to start hitting the ball consistently. That's going to be the key for him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there for sure. It's I wasn't quite as high on him during the draft. I think there was some issues there with his ability to impact the ball. Also working through some swing changes, though. I think you got to give him a little bit of patience, just because he is adjusting his swing. So we'll see how the swing continues to play over the next few weeks. See where that goes. Shall we head down to? Oh, we got probably a few pitchers there.
One guy.
Yeah.
One guy. Jake Bockenstead. An absolutely magnificent week for him.
Yeah.
Two games, 10 innings, 5 hits, 1 run. It came on a homer. 2 walks, 9 punchouts. He was very good this past week. I saw a video that Jeff Cohen took of him after the game. I believe it was yesterday. He had a great game, and he was talking about a kick change that he added. Shocker! A White Sox pitcher adds a kick change.
Surprise! A White Sox righty throwing a kick change.
Yeah. So he mentioned, like, I needed that pitch to attack opposite-handed hitters, and he's looked great so far. Like, this week was probably his best week since becoming a White Sox, to be honest. So I think
this is an underrated guy. Yeah, no, I was gonna say a guy I got to keep a name on, right? Like, another guy that, like, it's an org guy. He's 25 years old. He was an undrafted free agent. Sure, he keeps pitching well. He had a good year last year, and up and down last year. I think he struggled in Winston when he got there last year after doing pretty well in Canny, but great start to the season for sure.
100%. Also, one more. Phil Fox, 3 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 5 punchies. I'm happy for him. That's my guy.
Fox, one of Dylan's guys, reliever from last year's draft class, who he is immediately to Winston after not throwing it all in Canny last year. So that's clearly a sign of a guy that could be a fast track reliever when you go straight to Winston. So good to see him start going there. Handful of guys in that pen that have been solid in Winston. Aldrin Batista hits the IL. Really unfortunate, because that was the guy we were kind of circling on our Winston rotation of, like, oh, this is the guy in Winston that we plan to watch every week, at least for me. I plan to watch every start of his, and now he's down with an injury. Unclear the severity of that injury for now, so we'll keep you updated on that. But that's about it in Winston. Shall we finish up this roundup in Kannapolis, where Canny went 4-2 this week, and it wasn't consistent, but we started to see the signs of this Kannapolis offense that we know could explode at any given time, given the talent on this roster. Break it down for us. Who are the standouts this week in Canny?
Hold on, let me pull up the stats.
So Canny, pulling up, they went 4-2 this week. They're 5-4 now on the season. They're at home this week against Columbia. Always a fun matchup between Columbia and Kannapolis, two somewhat rivals in the Carolina League.
Hold on. In that Canny lineup, I think it was either Saturday or Friday. They had a doubleheader, so they were only playing 7 innings. In either game, they were down, I think it was 7 or 8-0 in, like, the bottom of the 4th inning. The top of the 5th, they score 11 runs, and it just where did it come from?
This was 11 runs, 17 batters in an inning. Pretty ridiculous. Like, what in the world? That's the type of talent on this lineup, and it hasn't come through fully so far. It's just, we will see, but it's such a talented lineup, man. When it's at its best, it is such a talented lineup. Yeah.
Two names that I will mention. Both of them are some of my favorite guys in the organization. They both had great weeks this past week. Javier Mogollon, 8 for 21. That's a .381 batting average, a double, a triple, and his first professional homer. He got into one and sent it out over the left center wall. 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, though, so he's struggled with it a bit. I believe that evens his strikeout and walk totals at 9 apiece, which in 8 games 9 strikeouts isn't terrible. It's better than it was last year. He
For
struggled
his
with the
first
strikeout.
stint of single A
Yeah.
ball, I'm totally okay with that personally.
Yeah, he struggled with the strikeout a bit last year. So for him to cut those numbers is a good sign. So I'm very happy to see that. Also swiped 4 bases, which I'll get to it later, but this Canny lineup stole a lot of bases this series, and he had the only caught stealing. He was 4 for 5, and he had the only caught stealing of the series. I'll just say it now. They were 20 for 21 on stolen base attempts in 6
Nuts.
games.
Nuts.
So, and the second guy I have to mention is Braden Montgomery. He had himself a week, 7 for 20, a double, 4 RBIs. Did strike out 7 times though, so it wasn't perfect, but he did have a great week, and he just continues to be a mainstay in the middle of that Canny lineup. He's racking up RBIs. I think he already has like 11 through 8 games, which is ridiculous. That, like we said, that Canny lineup is going to score runs, and they're going to score them in bunches.
Yeah, they're going to score him in bunches for sure. I think Montgomery's swinging hard. I think that's where the strikeouts are coming from a little bit. He's ready to hit. I think he's ready to just be in games after such a long delay of not playing games for almost a year. Like, he just looks ready to go. I don't think he's there long. I think that Montgomery's there because he's getting everyday reps in center field, which I think it sounds to me like the organization wants to get Braden Montgomery reps in center field, and that's something that has been a point to make so far. So that's why McLean's still getting reps in center as well. But he still is the guy that, in this lineup we're circling as like the superstar potential guy. There's other guys that also have a ton of potential, but Braden Montgomery is hopefully going to be that guy. And I do think that by May at some point we're going to see him make his way to Winston.
100%. Caleb Bonnemer also hit his first professional home run. I saw that in the chat. Yep. But he had a pretty good week. 5 for 20 with a walk and 6 punch-outs, which isn't great for him. But he's young. It's his very first taste of professional baseball, so I'm not that worried. Did have 2 doubles. Did have 3 stolen bases also. So that Canny lineup is going to run.
People just mentioned this in the comment. Like, it is really easy power for Bonnemer. Like, that homer was one where he just kind of turned on it, quick hand it, and it was well gone, and it was struck well. Yeah, he's got pop, man. He's got some serious pop, and he's got the athleticism. We're starting to see the speed coming. We're seeing his range show at shortstop. He's getting reps at shortstop. He's also getting reps at third base, which I think is interesting because Colson Montgomery, when he was coming up, it was always shortstop, shortstop, shortstop. Bonnemer, it's yes, he's a shortstop. We also think if he's going to be a third baseman at any point in his career, we should get him some innings there. And then they are getting some innings there. 5 starts at short, 3 starts at third. I am totally cool personally with seeing Bonnemer do a little both. I think it's good for him. I think it's good for his general experience to continue to get innings at both short and third. His arm is going to keep him on the left side of the infield. It's just a matter of if his range as he grows and fills out even more. He's already a really strong big dude. If he grows even more, fills out even more, then it's probably a third base thing because the range will be decreased versus if he stays kind of where he is right now with the body and gets even a little more athletic as he grows, then maybe he sticks at shortstop. He is just super exciting. I'm just pumped to watch this guy play this season because I think you can look at the swing and envision a guy that really starts to tap into some juice and shows a lot in the future. Yeah, a couple guys. Go ahead on Bonnemer, and then we'll keep going.
Okay, yeah, he's just a massive, massive human. I think that if he does end up going to third, I think we'll start to really see. We're going to start to see him take off because third base, it's not as hard on your legs as short. And if he ends up being a third baseman, which I think he probably will, just because I think he gets a little bit bigger as he gets older, he's gotten Brady House comps in the past, and Brady, he's gotten comps to Brady House, and Brady House has comps to Austin Riley. So by transitive property, that means that we can compare Caleb Bonnemer and Austin Riley. So
I was waiting for this breakdown, Dylan. I was waiting for this.
Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, I think that if Bonnemer ends up shifting to third, I think he's going to be a fantastic third base. I think that his profile, to be honest, is more suited for third base. But with the amount of power hitting, I don't want to say free swinging shortstops that we've seen over the past couple of years, thank you. Like Ellie De La Cruz, he's an anomaly. I'm not saying that Caleb Bonnemer is Ellie De La Cruz, but when you have that type of power, you're allowed to whiff a little bit more. And he doesn't have the pop that Ellie does, but he can shift to third and be more than fine.
Yeah, these comps are getting a little crazy, but I do like Caleb Bonnemer. I do think there's a lot in the tank there. Going to be exciting to see. The thing about this lineup, too, is like a couple of the mainstays in this lineup have not gotten going at all yet. Slow starts the year from George Walkout, still finding himself, stole a few bags, walked a few times. Those are all good signs for George. Still striking out a lot. Hasn't had the, those big power swings yet. Like, it's only a matter of time. We say that now, and like tomorrow, he's probably going to hit a 450-foot bomb because that's who he is. And that's what he does. Not worried about that at all. First few games of the season, 7 games so far. Same thing for Nick McLean and Casey Sauke, both, but 3rd and 4th round picks from last year. Slow starts in general. I just think those guys are, the beginning of their professional careers. Sauke's DHing, McLean's playing a little left, a little left, and a little center. A lot of good, at bats from McLean. 7 walks, like we said. A lot of guys in this lineup are walking, right? So McLean, even in a little bit of a slow start offensively, hasn't really had any extra base hits yet. Still getting on base at a decent clip. All 3 of those guys, like, if those guys start hitting, this lineup is one of the better lineups you could possibly find. You've got a guy like Jordan Sprinkle, who goes down from Winston to Candy this year. That's been kind of the veteran there. He's hitting really well to start the season. Lyle Miller Green with a decent start to the season. Has some 7 hits, 5 extra base hits from Lyle Miller Green in his first 8 games of the season. So pretty fun there from LMG, a guy that we also kind of think is more of an org guy, right? But has ridiculous power. Like, this lineup as a whole,
fun to watch.
Power is there for sure, and it's going to get more fun when Walkout and McLean and Sauke start hitting even more too.
100%. Quick note on Jordan Sprinkle. If you wanted to know where those 20 stolen bases came from, he was 7 for 7 on steals this past week.
It's ridiculous. I watched Jordan Sprinkle play. It's unfortunate, right? A 4th round pick who really has not found his groove the past 2 seasons in minor league baseball. Went to my college, so I watched him play when he was a few years ago before his draft season. Was very impressive with the glove, very impressive with the speed. Has just never quite turned the corner offensively. He looks great so far. I think that he's in Canny to get innings, but I would be perfectly happy to see him get some more innings in Winston, honestly. I think that aside from Antonacci and Gerald Perez, I think you could find innings for Sprinkle in that infield at some point. So he probably will head up to Winston here in the near future, which would open up more innings for Ryan Burroughs and Mikey Kane, both who have not gotten a ton of innings to this point, gotten a good amount. Actually, Burroughs had a good amount of innings so far. But in general, some more guys on the way. There'll be more guys coming down. That's most of what we got. Any other pitchers? Any pitchers you want to mention in Canny? There's a few pitchers to mention there. Yeah.
There was one big one. Christian Oppor, 4 2/3 hitless innings, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts in his professional baseball debut. Wow. He's got a fastball, slider, sweep. I don't even know what that breaking ball is. That combo is nuts.
Sweeper, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's Noah Schultz-esque, but man, is it close, because he's a big lefty. It's 97 to 99 on the fastball, and then breaks off a 79 to 81 mile an hour sweeper. Like, that's unhittable. And then his changeup that he's flashed is really good. Like, if those 3 pitches are the 3 that he has for the next 2-3 years, he'll fly up the system, because you can survive on 3 pitches in minor league baseball, especially if you have good command over it. Oppor, he's had issues in the past with repeating his delivery. That was why we didn't see him in full season ball last year. That's why he spent all the year in Arizona, was just trying to smooth out mechanics, get his delivery right. And now we're seeing the fruits of that labor, because if he can keep this up over a full year, man, he's going to fly up rankings. Yeah,
Oppor, a 2023 draft guy, but still 20 years old, going to be 20 years old through July this season. Like you said with the command, man, the sweeper was out of the zone a lot, but because it kind of works better out of the zone, right?
Yeah.
That was one thing, but I got a little bit of data here, the back end data on Oppor. 70% strike rate on the fastball and 81% strike rate on the changeup. So, throwing a lot of strikes, fastball with a ton of movement, 14 inches of vert and 13 inches of negative horizontal movement on his 2-seam. It is just a naturally running pitch, topped at 97.7 on the day in his first full professional start. The changeup averaging 80 miles an hour with 16 inches of horizontal movement, and then the sweeper coming in at 77 on average with another 13 and a half inches of horizontal movement and 1 inch of vert. It's a
Wow,
really good three pitch
that's
mix.
pretty
It's
good.
a really good three pitch mix. The White Sox can develop lefties, man. The White
Yeah,
Sox can develop lefties. We will see where that takes them, but the White Sox can definitely develop lefties. And Christian Oppor, yeah, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to keep the mechanics clean, but he has the chance to be the next in this lineage at this point of really impressive left-handers. That's a guy that yeah, I'm going to be watching Christian Oppor start. I believe he'll start again on Wednesday. I think he's locked
think
into
so.
that Wednesday start, I want to say, in
Yeah.
Kannapolis. Um, I'll be watching Christian Oppor for sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm ready to see more Christian Oppor. I also want to mention Mason Moore. Mason Moore has looked pretty solid through
Yep.
in Kannapolis. This is a guy who's is still. It was someone who we kind of pinpointed as like a little bit of a good value find in the draft last year because he was a really good sophomore in college at Kentucky and then really struggled his junior year, right? So you're kind of buying the dip on him, right? A guy who you'd seen even better stuff from in the past. Mason Moore's first minor league start this past week, 5 innings, 2 hits, no earned runs, 1 run, but unearned, 6 strikeouts for Mason Moore. So another big college experience guy, 23 years old. I think Mason Moore is going to be a guy that we get in Winston for a decent amount of the second half of the season.
Yeah, he was a guy that I like once we saw the draft picks and we did the draft special. He was a guy that I was like, okay, this could be somebody who is drafted late rounds after a bad draft year, but he could end up finding some of that magic that he had in years past.
Yeah.
And hopefully he does. He's looked great so far this year. I like his pitch mix. It's I believe it's 5. I think it's fastball, sinker, curveball, changeup, slider. I could be wrong
I
there.
think he mixes and matches a lot. I'm not sure what the breaking balls are, but I know he does mix at least 4 or 5 pitches for sure.
Yeah. So it's a lot of different pitches. He mixes looks. Like I've made this comparison in the past, and I don't want to keep using it because I don't think it's a like perfect comp. But he does remind me of Mason Adams in a way because it's a funky. It's a I don't want to say funky, but like not as funky as Mason Adams, but it's a guy who has good command over all of his pitches, and all of them move in a way that you wouldn't really expect from a guy from like an arm angle that Mason Moore has.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not just saying that because they have the same name. That's I've noted that in the past, and but yeah, I do think that they're pretty similar pitchers.
Yeah. Awesome, man. There'll be more time to talk about a lot of these guys, a lot of these Kannapolis arms that are just getting their kind of first taste of pro ball, right? Like we've seen Nick Pinto, we've seen, Pierce George and Blake Shepardson, Liam Paddock, Jack Young, all these 2024 draft class guys that we will have more opportunities to talk about in the future. These are kind of the headlines. The headlines so far of that the pitching staff has been Oppor and Mason Moore, but there's going to be plenty more to talk about with this staff. Canny in general is just a fun team, man. It's a fun team of young guys, and there's a lot of guys that a lot of question marks and a lot of guys that are still very early in their development, but plenty of players with legit upside up and down that roster.
100%. And there's one more pitcher I would like to mention. Eric McAtee, a free agent signing. A free agent signing. I believe he was in the Dodgers organization last year or in the past. But 5 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts last week in his White Sox organization debut. He's a guy. I know somebody who works at the facility he trains at, Cam Lanzilli. You quoted a tweet. He sent that exact same tweet to me. He's got some sneaky good stuff. His fastball can run up to the upper 90s. He's got a great changeup. He had a silly swing and miss on a changeup to a lefty where he just flung the bat out and ended up throwing it. But the White Sox could have a pretty sneaky relief group in these lower minors because guys like Pierce George, Blake Shepardson, those guys throw 100 almost every pitch, and then guys like Jack Young. Like Jack Young closed multiple. He has 2 saves on the year, and he won't touch 90. He's a side army guy, similar to Penn Murphy, where a sinker goes right and the slider goes left, and that's the 2 pitches that he has. Like, and nobody hits him because it's so funky and it's so slow that it's just tough to barrel and it's tough to even put a bat on it. So I really like some of these bullpen arms in the lower minors. I know that nobody is excited for bullpen arms, but
single A.
yeah, nobody is excited for those guys, but I am. I love good pitching, and the White Sox are a pretty good team at developing pitching nowadays.
Yeah, we will see where that all takes us for sure. We'll talk plenty more in the future. Thank you to everybody who's been talking in the comments. Appreciate you guys watching us and listening to us. We will have plenty more to come. Thanks for tuning into the Roundup, and we'll talk to everybody next time. Thanks, Dylan.
See ya.